All right, guys, this is our last example here. Thanks for sticking it out, and we're going to get this done. So in this case, we got a little bit of a higher degree polynomial. You will notice that, goodness, that's 4. That's not 3. So we're going to have we're going to have 4 zeros, and we don't know how many of them are going to be in the graph. As like before, we always want to go into our graph and find those first. So degree equals 4. We have 4 zeros, so let's go ahead and start by graphing. Okay, that should be second nature by this point. We've been doing this since pretty close to the first day of school for the semester. So let's go ahead and graph that. X to the 4th minus 10x cubed plus 32x squared minus 22x minus 65. 0 in for y2. Hit that graph button. Okay, it looks like it crosses at -1 and there's a second one at, I think, +5. Second trace 5. Let's go to the left first. Oops, I went a little bit too far. Well, that's about as close as I'm going to get. So press 3 enters. -1. Second trace 5. Always press second trace 5 immediately after you do the last one. Don't scroll and then do it, because guess what? It's going to go back to where your other intersection was. All right, press, ooh, that's right there. But I'm going to press enter 3 times. And that's going to give you 5 as well. So x equals -1, x equals 5. Well, that's about all I can do with this graph, so I'll put this to the side. So now what are we going to do from there? Well, like before, we're going to use synthetic division, but the problem is I got 2 zeros. So which one do I start with? Well, guess what? It doesn't really matter, okay? Remember, that's a 1. So these are our real zeros. We're going to have 2 more zeros using synthetic division. We're going to pick a 0 and start with. So we'll just say -1. And we'll use our coefficients here, 1, -10, 32, -22, and -65. Bring down the 1, and let's go through that process of synthetic division. 1 times -1 is -1. -10 plus -1 is -11. -11 times -1 is positive 11. 32 plus 11 is 43. 43 times -1 is -43. -22 plus -43 is -65. -65 times -1 is +65. And oh my gosh, we get 0. So that's not going to be a quadratic. That's 4 terms. So guess what? We got to do it again with the other 0. So this time we're going to put a 5 in the box, and we're going to bring down these 4. Remember, that's your remainder, so that's out of the picture. But we're going to bring down the 1, the -11, the 43, and the -65, and we're going to do it one more time. So bring down the 1. 1. 1 times 5 is 5. -11 plus 5 is -6. -6 times 5 is -30. 43 and -30 is 13. 13 times 5 is 65, and you get 0. That's your remainder. So now I have three numbers. That's my A, B, and C. And so like up here before in this problem, we are going to need to use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula, let me rewrite it again. That's going to be x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I could sing a song for you if you want, but I'm not going to do that right now. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Remember that this is your a value. Negative 6 is your b. And c is 13. So let's plug it in. So if I plug in a, b, and c into this formula, I get x equals negative, b is negative 6. So once again, that's going to flip that 6 to make it positive. All right, plus or minus the square root of parentheses negative 6 squared minus 4, what's a? 1. C is 13. All over 2 times a, which is 1 again. A happens to be 1 quite a bit in these. So let's simplify that. That's going to be positive 6 plus or minus. I like to do the inside of the square root first. So let's see, what do we get? I'll have to zoom out a little bit. Negative 16. Perfect. We're looking for a perfect square. So the square root of negative 16 over 2. Well, again, it's a negative 16, so it's going to give you an I. Since I'm in A plus BI mode, I'll just remind you that the square root of negative 16 is 4I. Square root of 16 is 4, so it's going to be 6 plus or minus 4I divided by 2. And since both of these are divisible by 2, we'll say 3 plus or minus 4 divided by 2 is 2. Treat the I like a variable, so it's really just 2I. And that can't be simplified any further, so those are your complex. So these are my real, two reals, 1, 2, complex, two complex, 1, 2, with one with a positive, one with a negative. Put it all together, and my zeros are x equals negative 1, x equals 5, x equals 3 plus 2i, and x equals 3 minus 2i. There's always going to be a plus or minus with those i's. So it's just they come in pairs. So those are my complex zeros. Let me zoom out so you can see the whole dang thing. And well, that should be enough for you guys to do the assignment for U3D4. So let me know if you have any questions. And I hope this made sense. And apologize for breaking it down to 3 videos, but I just don't like having one video be extremely long. So it's kind of a complicated lesson. Thank you again for watching.